Welcome to my channel. My name's Leanne, and today I will be showing you how to make a habit tracker. If you clicked on this video, I'm guessing that you might have a couple of habits that you're trying to solidify in your life, or a couple of bad habits that you'd like to get rid of. Habit trackers to me are a great visual tool to check in with where you actually are with your habits and help you become more aware of where you stand. I personally love habit trackers because I'm a visual learner and prefer to track my progress on pen and paper as opposed to on an app as a way to help me reduce the time that I spend on my phone. And without further ado, let me show you how I make my monthly habit tracker. There are essentially two things that you need, just a piece of paper and a pen. I personally like using graph paper. But at the end of the day, you can use whatever paper you want, or you can even make it online if you like making things digitally. So just grab a piece of graphed paper if you have one, and then a pen. Or if you're extra like me, I like using some fancy pens to make my habit tracker. The very first and most important step to making a habit tracker is actually figuring out what habits you'd like to establish in your life. A couple questions you might ask yourself: what are some things I'd like to include in my everyday routine? Another question that I really love: what are the habits of my higher self? And this is a great one I like to use to think about the life that I want to live and use habits as a way to close that gap from where I'm at now as opposed to where I would like to be. Another question you could ask: what are some areas of my life that need more attention? Outside of your graphed piece of paper, I would grab a notebook and just start jotting down some habits that you'd like to include on your habit tracker and start brainstorming those. All right, if this is your first time making a habit tracker, I want you to come up with 10 habits for your tracker if you're just starting out. You want to make sure that you ease into making these changes, because if you try to change everything overnight, you might just decide to throw in the towel and stay stuck in your own ways. You have to remember that you want these changes to be sustainable, and some habits on your list might be easier for you to accomplish than others, and that's totally okay. I've been making habit trackers for over a year now, so my list has 15 habits that I'm working on. So I just jotted down my list of habits that I'm going to include on my February habit tracker on a separate notepad. Mine has 15 because I've been working on refining my habits for quite some time now. I'm about to out myself and own a handful of my bad habits here, but here we go. I personally have struggled with forming a solid night routine. Mornings are definitely a lot easier for me because the sun is out. I have a lot more energy when I just wake up, but then when the nighttime rolls around, I have a lot less energy and it feels so much easier for me to just fall asleep. So a lot of the habits on my habit tracker are very night routine focused so that I could build a night routine that I truly enjoy. So step one was figuring out what habits you'd like to keep track of. And then step two is simply making your habit tracker. I want you to take a look at the list of habits you wrote out earlier. And if you haven't already, put them in an order that you would like to do them in. If it's a morning routine you'd like to solidify, or if it's night routine you'd like to solidify, reorder your habits and put them in a sequential order for the habit tracker. For example, on my list, the very first thing I have on the habit tracker is to have a phone-free hour. That's the very first thing, and then the very last thing. For me, I have my habits listed as first, like my phone-free hour, and then the next thing I want to meditate, wash my face in the morning, floss, and make my bed. And that's the first earlier chunk of habits in my list. And that kind of segments my morning routine, and then the other half is my night routine, and then the last is like my closing out of the day of my habits. That's how I categorize them. The next thing, I want you to think about how long you want to track them for. I personally make my habit trackers based off of a month-long period. You could do them for a week, you could do them for a couple weeks, but I found that for myself, I like making my habit trackers on a month-to-month basis, but then changing up my habits every 3 months, or in business terms, a quarter, or even just, you know, changing them with the season. It takes 75 days to really build a habit. So the hope is that by the time April comes around, I will have a completely different set of habits that I want to be working on. Now I know that I have 15 habits and there's 29 days in February. You will have a lot of free space around the tracker to actually make this tracker yours. So definitely make it fun and add some personal touches. I like to put some goals over at the top corner that remind me why I'm working on building these habits in the first place. Maintaining your habit tracker. It's so important to keep your tracker in a place where you can see it every day. I keep mine on my desk in my room and report to it right in the morning, and it's the last thing that I do at night. Try to check off the habit right after you complete it. I treat this as a little reward system where I get a dopamine spike whenever I cross something off of a list or check something off of an empty box, so work on building that association with that habit. I also like to make strike-throughs for every perfect day that I have on my habit tracker and for every 7-day streak that I have. This makes it more visually obvious which habits are easier for you to build and which habits need more of my attention. You can see that having a phone-free morning, meditating, and then me eating past a certain time are definitely habits that I really struggle with, whereas habits like my gratitude list and making my bed are ones that are easier for me to build, and I keep that in mind when I make my habit tracker for the following month to pay extra attention to those ones that I've struggled with in the previous month. And that's it. It's how to build a habit tracker in just a few simple steps. Just remember that building habits and breaking habits take time, and this is simply a tool to help you get there. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and let me know down below which habits you'd like to build this year.
Cute. Okay, and I'm rolling?
This is how I take my thumbnail pictures.
That's the one.
Yay!
That'll be so good. I wondered how they did that. I was like,